The Education Bureau is being criticized for overlooking the needs and woes of students with learning disabilities. This comes as a hyperactive student was found to have multiple fractures, believed to be from being physically punished at school. Diane Toe reports.
Emily's 9-year-old son has dyslexia and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. The boy studies at a mainstream school in Lam Tin. One day after school in April, Emily found her son wounded all over his body. When she reported the case to the police, they found out that he'd been punished for dirtying a toilet in the school. It's believed a teacher had beaten the boy, bruising him and fracturing several of his bones. The boy ended up in hospital for 4 days, and Emily filed a complaint with the Education Bureau. She said the Bureau referred the case to the school to be followed up, yet the school said because it was under police investigation, it did not contact the parents about it. And Emily questioned the school's handling of the case. The school responded to our inquiry about the incident, saying the teacher has been suspended from disciplinary duties and administration work, but is still teaching. Emily's son still goes to the school, but has rejected its offer of counselling because the hospital is already providing it. According to the police, the teacher was arrested earlier on suspicion of assault and is out on bail. The Education Bureau said it will wait until the police investigation and school evaluation are complete before it reviews the teacher's qualification. But Labour Party lawmaker Fernando Cheung criticised the government for shirking its responsibility. He said he received 10 complaints about students with learning disabilities being bullied over the past year, which the Bureau refused to investigate by referring the cases back to the schools. Cheung pointed out that if the incidents involve a breach of education laws or policies, then it should be taken up directly by the government. And both bullying and physical punishments are clearly banned under such laws and policies. Diane To, TVB News.
Beijing authorities have yet to give an official account of yesterday's fatal crash outside the Forbidden City. The Associated Press has quoted a hotel employee as saying police circulated a notice looking for information about 2 suspects with Uyghur names following the incident. Security was clearly stepped up today all around Tiananmen Gate, where a jeep plowed through a crowd and then burst into flames. All 3 people inside the vehicle and 2 bystanders, including a Filipino woman, died. Dozens of others were injured. A Hong Kong-based China human rights group has reported one of the men in the jeep was a relative of a Uyghur who died during riots in Xinjiang back in June.
Britain and parts of Western Europe are emerging from one of the most violent storms in decades. 13 people are confirmed dead, and now the task of adding up the destruction has begun. James Aiken has the latest.
This part of the world doesn't get hurricanes due to its geographic location, but St. Jude, as some have dubbed it, was every bit as vicious. With driving rain and wind gusts of up to 120 miles per hour in some areas, the storm slammed the region, leaving a path of death and destruction from France to Denmark. People were warned to stay indoors. Some victims were crushed by falling trees. Some were swept out to sea and are still missing. Across much of the region, flights were delayed or canceled. Railways were paralyzed. Roads were shut down, and ferry traffic was halted. Hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses were without power. By late afternoon, the worst of the storm had passed, but the destruction it left behind was vivid.
The bus overturned in Hadley, and you can see there that it's come off the road.
The owner of this car knew something was wrong when she heard the car alarm.
I came downstairs and I fought my way out through the front door because the tree was blocking our entrance. I managed to get out, went to see my neighbours. At that point I was told to get in the house pretty darn quick because the rest of the tree came down.
As transport systems creep back to life, the task begins of adding up the costs of this damage. And those costs will be high, like this collapsed crane in the middle of London, which fell into a building near the Prime Minister's office. The worst storm to hit the region in decades was unusual in how it gained strength. Meteorologists say unlike most of the storms in this region, which develop and strengthen over the Atlantic, this one got stronger as it passed over land. The last time this part of the world saw anything this bad was in 1987. The Great Storm, as it was called, killed 18 people and caused billions of dollars in damage. James Aiken, TVB News.
To the United States, where the White House continues to take a beating for spying on some of its closest allies. Mad that the German chancellor's cell phone was also tapped, German officials are now threatening to strip U.S. access from tracking the money flow of terrorist organizations. So, U.S. President Barack Obama is considering ending spying on friends and allies.
It wasn't an apology, but it was the next best thing. The White House officially acknowledged its widespread security gathering measures need changing.
We understand that this has caused concern in countries that represent some of our closest relationships internationally, and we are working to allay those concerns.
The diplomatic blunder is based on relentless leaks from intelligence whistleblower Edward Snowden. Spain and Germany bore the brunt of the eavesdropping. This is why European Parliament members representing both countries descended upon Washington. They're demanding that America get its security gathering priorities straight or face sanctions.
Of course, we are not considering our chancellor as a terrorist, and so therefore I would say they have to think about or to reconsider what data they really are interested in.
We came here with a goodwill now, and also with a strong message of our citizens saying that we don't accept this.
As leverage, German authorities are threatening to suspend a post-September 11, 2001 agreement that allows America access to bank transfer data to track the flow of terrorist money. Perhaps the National Security Agency is taking a page from Sun Tzu's Art of War strategy. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Turkey is, for the first time, connecting its European and Asian sides with a railway tunnel that was officially unveiled today. The tunnel is a project aimed at boosting Turkey's economy under the government of Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The tunnel is 13.6 kilometers long and runs under the Bosporus Strait that connects the Black Sea to the Sea of Marmara and divides Istanbul between Asia and Europe. Turkish officials are hailing it as the deepest submerged railway tunnel in the world.
Aung San Suu Kyi had a busy day in Italy yesterday. In addition to having an audience with the Pope, she also met the Italian president and prime minister. Myanmar's opposition leader leaned over and kissed the hand of Pope Francis upon meeting him. The two then sat and spoke to one another through a translator while in the Pope's private library. She also met with Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta and President Giorgio Napolitano after speaking at a news conference at Italy's foreign ministry. At that conference, she addressed the issue of fighting for long-term political change in Myanmar. Her meetings came after she was awarded honorary citizenship of Rome on Sunday, an honor originally given to her in absentia in 1994.
Welcome back. 2 died in a car crash in Tai Po early this morning, and the police suspect there might be more to the accident. The 28-year-old male driver and his female passenger suffered fatal injuries and were pronounced dead at the hospital. They were in Bride's Pool heading towards Luk Kang at around 2 a.m. when the driver lost control at the right bend along Mae Woo Road. After swerving onto a field in the opposite lane, the car rammed into a tree. Police said the tire marks on the road were unusual, and they'll investigate whether the private vehicle was speeding or has been modified.
The chief executive today stood firm on not making public the details why the Executive Council chose to reject Hong Kong Television Network's application for a free-to-air TV license. Leung Chun-ying said the chief executive and council has the right to decide on free TV license issuing matters, and details and reasons behind its decision were never disclosed. But as Diane To reports, this may not be true.
About a dozen former employees of Hong Kong Television Network, which was recently denied a free-to-air TV license, are still camped out at the central government offices. The protesters say they're lobbying more lawmakers to support a motion to use special LegCo powers to force a disclosure of the government's reasons behind the rejection. They also pointed out that an application for a judicial review of the issue has now been withdrawn, so the government is free to speak out on the matter. But the chief executive continued to stand firm on the EXCO confidentiality rule, despite massive demonstrations in recent weeks. Speaking before the weekly Executive Council meeting, Leung Chun-ying said the decision to grant 2 other TV stations the free-to-air license was based on government policy and mechanism, the law and procedural justice. He maintained that the details and reasons behind EXCO decisions have always been kept confidential, be it pre- or post-handover days. So even if there's no ongoing judicial review, this confidentiality rule must not be broken. However, a particular incident may have escaped his memory. Back in year 2000, when EXCO accepted only 5 of 10 applications for consideration of pay TV licenses, then Secretary for Information Technology and Broadcasting Carrie Yao did tell people why. She explained that the rejected applicants used outdated technology or didn't have enough financial support. Information technology sector lawmaker Charles Mok called on Leung to think about all the taxpayers' money the government would save by not fighting the case in court, since a legal battle over this is unnecessary. Mok is putting forth the motion at next Wednesday's council meeting to force the government to give more details about the EXCO decision. So far, 34 lawmakers, including some from the pro-establishment camp, have voiced support. The motion now only lacks 4 votes in the functional constituencies to get it passed. Diane To, TVB News.
Lawmaker James To, who represents families and bereaved family members of the Manila hostage incident, held a meeting today with Manila City Councilor Benedito Ang. They discussed how to move forward in trying to bring closure to the tragedy.
We reiterate our 4 demands, but the gap is still fair to say is very wide. But each side will try their very best to take advantage of the next 2 days and try to narrow the gap. We will, each side will have our own internal meeting or taking instruction from those who can decide and try to, if possible, to reach any consensus in 2 days' time.
He said he explained to the Manila City Councilor, who had asked to meet with the victims and family members, that a meeting cannot be arranged due to psychological sensitivities. Ang is here on behalf of Manila Mayor Joseph Estrada, who's offered compensation and to make an official apology. Meanwhile, Philippine President Benigno Aquino has refused to accept responsibility over the
Researchers have found in a recent study that many ethnic minority children don't have access to early childhood education or are more likely to drop out of school. One possible reason for this is their inability to cope with Chinese as a first language at school. As Stephanie Choi reports, scholars are hoping to change that.
According to the study, up to a fifth of young Filipino, Pakistani and Nepalese children in Hong Kong do not receive kindergarten or preschool education. Researchers have also found that more ethnic minority youths than their Chinese counterparts drop out of secondary school before finishing Form 5. And young ethnic minority adults aged 19 to 22 are significantly less likely to get into university when compared with their Chinese peers. Scholars say a reason for this is the Chinese language has become a stumbling block for ethnic minorities.
In Hong Kong, there's only one way for all the students to be successful, is to master the language. Everyone had to be familiar with Chinese and English.
This may have driven some members of ethnic minorities to study abroad, which raises the question of how Hong Kong can keep talent around.
It's very important for the government to make it clear to the public what kind of policy we are adopting in our society, so that they will stay in Hong Kong after graduation or after the further higher education in other countries.
Experts say helping ethnic minorities cope with the language barrier is only one way of building their sense of belonging to Hong Kong. They pointed out to fully cater to the needs of these minorities, we should also look into factors such as cultural and familial values. But for now, scholars are pushing for Chinese to be taught as a second language so that ethnic minority children will still be able to do well at school. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says athletes and guests at next year's Olympics in Sochi will feel comfortable regardless of their ethnicity, race, or sexual orientation. Putin and new IOC President Thomas Bach were on hand to open a railway station in the host city. Putin has come under fire for a newly enacted law which prohibits the promotion of non-traditional sexual relations among minors. But the Russian president insisted gays and lesbians are welcome at the Games. Bach expressed confidence Russia will deliver a successful Olympics.
And finally, Chinese pianist Lang Lang has been appointed as the 12th United Nations Messenger of Peace.
I'm truly humbled today, Mr. Secretary General, to receive this unique pin. And with it, the great honor of becoming a Messenger of Peace of the United Nations. Enjoying the 11th Distinguished Messenger of Peace, I pledge to do my best as I travel around the world to bring awareness to your Global Education First initiative.
Now, the announcement was made by UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Messengers of Peace are celebrities who promote awareness about UN initiatives. Other messengers include Stevie Wonder and Michael Douglas. Ban said the 31-year-old piano phenomenon will be a role model for many children around the world. And that's an exciting wrap of our news. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.